Before we start today's show, let me tell you about the Oxford Exxon Highway 6 West in Oxford. They told you about it at the Pavilion last night. Stop in, get the bottomless refill. It's only 49 cents. You go in, you get the Stadium Cup, you buy the Stadium Cup, and every time you pass a Blue Sky location in Mississippi, head on in, 49 cents to refill it all the way up to the top and quench your thirst there with Blue Sky and the Oxford Exxon lunch specials. Much, much, much more, including ribs and a plenty clean, convenient store, good gas prices, and more. Blue Sky throughout Mississippi. Also coming to you from the Clark Ford Studio. That's 662-257-1900 or Highway 25 South there in Amory for Clark Ford. Call Corey Clark. Get a quote within 15 minutes during business hours. He will let you know the best deal he can give. Shop it around. Take it, whatever you'd like. And at the end, you're going to come back. And when you do, tell them you heard about it on the podcast. This podcast, any of the other MPW Digital family of podcasts, $500 off that vehicle at Clark Ford. Now on to the show.
From the Clark Ford Studio in Oxford, Mississippi, MPW Digital proudly presents the Oxford Exxon Podcast.
I'd say thanks for tuning in, but why am I going to give you a round of applause for something that you're supposed to do, to be frank?
And now, here are your hosts, Chase Parham.
And broadcast school has really paid off.
And Neal McCready.
I deserve to be on TV.
Thursday edition of the Oxford Exxon Podcast. Chase Parham, Neal McCready, Clark Ford Studio this morning, a guest-packed show. We're going to have Rich Rodriguez, Ole Miss offensive coordinator, joining us here in a little bit. We sat down with him in his office yesterday for 15-20 minutes, so a good interview with him upcoming, as well as our typical conversation on Thursdays with one Jeffrey Wright. A lot of basketball in that. We'll get to basketball in a second to start the show. Also do a bit of an NFL preview with Jeffrey as well. As you know by now, Ole Miss, a 15-point winner over number 11 Auburn last night at the Pavilion. A packed crowd, a fun environment as the Rebels move to 12-2 overall, 2-0 in the SEC. They've won 8 or 9 in a row now. They're rolling heading into a Saturday game at Mississippi State. The Bulldogs coming off a loss to South Carolina in Columbia. So huge game for both teams for a little bit different reasons, and surprisingly, the direction of those reasons as we move forward. Neal, we're gonna get to basketball here in a bit. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna kind of set the stage. We're going to go to Rodriguez. We're gonna come back. We're gonna go to Jeffrey, which has a lot of basketball, and then we'll also close the show with basketball as well. So really, you covered it. A lot of stuff up on the site, videos, stories, some internet reaction, a lot of stuff up. But since the Pavilion was built, the kind of the utmost banner night for Ole Miss basketball to this point.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think it's the most promising night since the arena was built. Big crowd, not sold out. They're going to get bigger crowds if they keep this up. And there's really no reason to think that they can't keep some semblance of this up. Neat environment. The kids played hard against a good team. Auburn's really good. Auburn's going to win a bunch of games. This is an Auburn team that took Duke to the final minutes. This is it's a quality Auburn team. They were a little rusty. I talked to Sonny Smith, the former Auburn coach. He's part of their radio network. One of the best dudes you'll ever meet. And Sonny at halftime said first time he's seen Auburn play scared. And Sonny's seen Auburn a lot. Thought that was interesting. This Ole Miss team plays with edge. It plays with a lot of grit, a lot of heart, and they're talented in some spots. And it's quickly becoming a very interesting story. I mean, you know, they were picked to finish last in the SEC. Yours truly picked them to finish next to last in the SEC. Forgive me, I watched a lot of that team last year. It was hard to completely throw that out of my mind when I was making my picks this year. I think it's safe to say they're not going to finish 13th or 14th in the league. The tournament conversation is probably a little premature, but we're not far away from getting into that point where we start talking about it legitimately.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot there. It's we talk about it a lot with Jeffrey, and we'll talk about it a lot after Jeffrey when you and I come back. But it's quickly becoming a really fascinating story, and frankly, for Ole Miss, it's good because it's an athletics program that needs something positive. And if you're Mike Bianco, you're probably thrilled right now because this season that's going to be ridiculous.
He quickly congratulated Kermit on Twitter last night.
I bet he did. Instead of in February going, well, this is all we have. By God, you must take us to Omaha, or we all burn to the ground.
Lead us.
Yeah. I think yesterday between the press conferences with the coordinators, which was a little different than the press conferences we've had with the coordinators the last 2 years, and then the Ole Miss basketball victory over a very good Auburn team. There was probably a little pep in people's step walking out of the pavilion.
Yeah, you know how some still do it. The newspapers that do all like the cartoon front pages and stuff. Over the years, you would have a perfect opportunity most years for the Ole Miss baseball to like let Mike be Moses and like have all the people like promised land upon us now as we move forward. Yeah, we'll talk plenty of basketball. What we talk about with Jeffrey, just thrill for a lot of people. You won't find a bigger basketball fan than Ben Craddock. I saw him before the game yesterday. I know he was jacked up and different things. Just everybody involved. It's cool to watch. It's cool to watch kind of the resurgence of the program and the excitement that, frankly, is there for a fan base. It's been beaten up in a lot of ways over the last few years. So good all around. We'll come back and talk to it a bit. I'm going to go to Rodriguez again. We got 15, 16 minutes, I think is what it is with him. Huge thanks to Kyle Campbell of Ole Miss Media Relations for helping us out with that the last couple of days. Really, really appreciate it, including me going to the wrong building yesterday and finding me and directing me to the right place. I've only been on campus 7,000 times in my life, so it's okay. It's probably a little bit of Neil's fault, probably a little bit of my fault. I think we had just a little mix-up there, but all good.
Well, we use pronouns, and sometimes
pronouns are not good always.
Pronouns can get you in trouble.
Yeah, his office was the word used, and that had some variables in it.
It was my fault.
It's okay.
It's okay. I normally don't use a lot of pronouns. That's what I get for using them. And
Neil did the entire podcast with a huge bucket of candy next to him yesterday, too, and did not grab a single piece. You were eat willpower. There were Skittles and Butterfingers in there. And
that's not my weakness, man.
No.
That's really not.
That have been like some ice cream with some Baileys and some caramel and some different things.
That would have been closer to my weakness.
Yeah.
There's some chips and salsa type stuff.
Yeah.
Now you're getting into my area.
Probably going to grab a chip if a chip's sitting there.
Be hard not to. I can skip the candy bar.
Okay. So we'll get to Rich Rodriguez now on the Patterson and Earhart hotline.
We're here with Rich Rodriguez. Rich, I guess we'll start here. You've been out of coaching for a year. Mm-hmm. You get back in. Just the logistics of starting a job like this. I mean, it's football, but you're a person. You got to find a place to live and all that stuff. What's that like?
Yeah, it was a lot of anxious moments for me in the last 10 months, just trying to, first off deciding, do I want to still coach? And I did. And then finding the right fit. And then now coming back, not so much being an assistant, but when you get hired as a head coach, it's like, not just drinking water through a fire hose, but you're also have everybody doing things for you. You're going to have somebody do this, and then when you're an assistant coach, that's not quite always the case, even though they're making a transition really easy, not just from us, meeting with the coaches and deciding responsibilities, but, moving. And my kids are older. They're in college, so that makes the move a little bit easier. But I'm ready to go. I'm fired up about the staff, fired up about the players, and more than anything about being in a program that really wants to have success and is doing what it takes.
You talked about how you didn't know Matt Luke. I don't think you guys had even spoken before this came about. What sort of led to that? What was that like? What were your impressions of him, and how quickly did that move along? Because it kind of looked from the outside like it moved along pretty fast.
Well, in our first conversation, I knew Mike McIntyre, and then Mike was coming over here. And then I saw the opening, and then when Matt called me, you could just tell sometimes I'm talking with someone 10 or 15 minutes on the film that this would be a great guy to work with. And so I had a great feeling with Matt just after our first conversation. Then we had another call or two on the phone, and then I was able to come out here and visit. And it was when I came out here for the interview, if you ever want to call it, and visit with him, I just knew right then this is, if you're going to be an assistant coach, if you're going to, start your career back up, so to speak, this is a great guy to be with, a great place to do it at.
You mentioned starting your career back up. Was there any point in the last 10 months where you thought, maybe I'm not going to get back into it, or did you always kind of know, hey, there's going to be an opportunity, I just have to be patient here?
There was a little bit. That's a fair question. I mean, there was a little bit, in the last couple years, because there's a shorter span of now being head coach, just because it'll just, it's, when you've done it for 24 years, whatever, it can be, you can start looking at the end of it. And I thought, okay, maybe I'll go another 5 or 6 years. But then after all that happened and I'm sitting out here now, I'm kind of ticked off. I'm like, now I need to go prove ourselves again and find an opportunity to do that. And whether it's a head coach or as a coordinator or what have you, I wanted to have the right opportunity and hopefully that would come up. But you never know. You never knew what was going to come up. And this thing kind of came up maybe out of the blue, out of the dark, so to speak, and it turned out to be terrific.
You made a joking reference to the buyout life that was obviously kind of funny, but how much can a guy like Matt learn from and lean on someone like you as a resource? You've been a head coach at, don't leave a place out, Salem College, Glenville State, West Virginia, Michigan, Arizona. I mean, you've been all over. I mean, there's probably nothing that he encounters that you've never encountered as a head coach. How much of a resource is that, not only with you, but with Mike and Coach Bicknell from Louisiana Tech? Yeah, I think that's one thing. Hopefully that I talked to Matt about it. I said, obviously, running the offense and doing those things will be a huge part of the job. But I said there'll be other cases where I'm just going to bring a suggestion or two or something that maybe we've done or I've seen that maybe could help us. And then if you don't like it, just say you don't like it, and my feelings won't be hurt. Because I remember as a head coach, you want to, obviously you're running the show, but you want guys on your staff that are not afraid to give their opinion or their input, particularly on something that you think can help win games. And there'll be things that I'm sure, whether it's Mike or Jack or any of the coaches on the staff can bring up that'll help the program get better. And that doesn't mean they're not doing great things now, because I think they are. I don't think there'll be a whole lot from that respect, but I also think there are just little simple things as far as what I have seen or what I've experienced throughout the years that can help Ole Miss. When you meet the kids, the players here, what's that process? Is it getting to know them as people first, and then and I think that is that all you want all your staff to do, and I probably think, and I've always said this, I think being a head coach makes you a better assistant, because you know what some of the things that you want as a head coach, your assistants to do. But I do think is from a player standpoint, you don't want them, whether it's any coach, like, I heard about this or heard about this, them. You want them to get to know the real you, and you got to get to know the real them. And the whole thing about knowing the players and knowing how to motivate them is key. And every player is different from that regard. And I don't know these guys because I didn't recruit them. I wasn't here. I was in another part of the country. So that's one of my goals in this spring, is to get to know all of them, not just the offensive guys, but get to know all of them as people, as get to know their families a little bit, and that way I can coach them better.
Just kind of looking through some of your history, you mentioned knowing the kids, but even from an ability level, I mean, you've coached a guy like Solomon, throws for 4,000 yards. You've had Pat White and Khalil that's really run the ball so well. What's kind of the way to find figure out what you have to adapt the offense to whatever your skill sets are, and how does that process play out, and how long does it take, kind of? It
probably really takes, I think by the end of spring, you'll know what you have with the guys on campus, because you'll be able to judge things through that. But sometimes even with Khalil Tate, we thought we knew what we had, and then he got in a game and he was better at certain things, And so some guys, most of them are better in a game. Some guys maybe not as better in the game. So you may not really know till you play a game, but I think from their skill set, what their strengths are physically, I'll have a good idea of it after spring. And then again, whatever they do well or do better than others is probably which way we'll kind of gear some of the offense to. But we got to be able to do both. We got to be able to throw. We got to be able to run it, and the system will be put in this spring.
Are you surprised that you're kind of considered one of the fathers of the spread offense? Are you surprised, looking back from 27 years ago, that it is as prevalent throughout football as it is today?
Yeah, a little bit. Only that for some respects that it took this long. We were doing it at Glenville, and I was there 7 years. It didn't, it wasn't really catching on like big time Division I football or the NFL. But that's okay, because the games weren't on TV. Even though we went to a national championship game, it still wasn't on TV. Then when it had started happening at Tulane, the undefeated year, and then at Clemson when more games were on TV, and then all of a sudden at West Virginia when there was 50 coaches from Division I programs visiting in the offseason, I thought, okay, there's no pads on scheme. You're going to start seeing this all over the place. But the NFL was the last to go. And it's really in the last couple years that you're seeing, I guess, so-called college schemes, more in the pass game, but some in the run game adapted to the NFL than before. And it's because their sole purpose is to win. And what do we got to do to win? And so it's been kind of fulfilling. I'd rather that nobody else did it, so then you're unique.
Then it's yours, yeah.
It's out now, and it'll keep evolving, in different ways.
You talked about going to like the Falcons and the Bears. When you're, say, with Matt Nagy and he's there with Mitch Trubisky and those guys, I mean, I know you're there to learn from them, but how much did they flip it around and quiz you on stuff? Because I know they're trying to steal ideas from you as much as you are from them.
Yeah, some of the coaches a little bit, but really wasn't, much with the players. From that respect. But, like Mark Helfrich at the Bears, I mean, he and I have known each other forever, and he's got, we've got experience playing each other, so we've traded scheme ideas and things like that. But and then the other colleges I went to, we talked, scheme ideas. But really nowadays with the technology and all that, if you can watch somebody's film, you can get ideas. The good part about talking to the coaches that run those things is you can get an idea why this scheme or what's your thought process behind doing this. And they may do something that's very similar, but they have a different mindset on reason why they do it.
That was Mike McIntyre at the door just then. It led to a question that I had. I mean, how much fun will it be maybe in some practices in spring and fall camp and stuff when you guys have coached against each other when, you were wearing the Arizona stuff and he's the Colorado guy. Now you get to go against each other all the time in practice. Will there be almost kind of a daily bragging right sort of a thing?
I have a feeling it's going to be pretty competitive. Knowing Mike, because he's the nice guy. He's got a great demeanor about him, but he is ultra competitive. And probably most of the guys that have been around me would say the same thing to the nth degree. So I have a feeling that when we start going live in practice, and there'll be a little bit of talking going on. There's some competitiveness coming out.
You kind of own that. I mean, when you're in talking to Matt and you know that Mike's the defensive coordinator and different things, what were sort of just your overall impressions from the games against him and kind of what kind of defenses and just process that he went through on the other side of the ball?
Yeah, he had a huge. I mean, as I said earlier, I mean he got there and he had a lot of work to do to get Colorado competitive in the Pac-12, and it took a couple years not to be competitive because they were competitive almost immediately, but to win. And to take the South title. So I mean the work he had to do, it required some patience, the administration from him and the staff, and the belief in what he was doing, and that was so impressive. I mean he did one of the most remarkable coaching jobs in college football in the last several years. What he did at Colorado, and he and that's what's so exciting about here. He's going to do a lot of the same things here, but not just him. The other coaches that I've met and worked with just in the last couple of days, superly impressed with not just who they are, but their commitment to saying they're not sitting back and saying, "Oh, this new guy." I mean, they're like asking questions and they've bought in 100%. That makes the transition so much easier because we all have egos, and coaches are probably the worst one with egos, and that's okay. But these guys have just talking to the offensive guys in the last couple of days, they're going to be great to work with.
How often do you get asked about the Alabama job that from November of 2006?
Probably a lot more now. I'm in the South, and particularly in the SEC, I'll probably get asked it, on who knows, it's like those rumored things, by the time it goes all the way around the room, it's changed to 100%, what the facts are, and that's probably gone the same way. I mean, that was how many years ago? 10, 12 years ago?
Yeah, 12 years.
And they hired the best coach in the history of football. I mean, not just in college, in the history of football. They hired the best coach in the history of college football, and he's still winning championships. So it worked out well for Bama. And, I've got friends on that staff. The athletic director, Greg Burns, a friend of mine. But I'm not going to like them one day a year for sure, or 1 week. I'm going to say it's a whole week, one whole week for a year, maybe longer than that. But great respect for what they do.
You've coached all over the country, and you've recruited the Southeast and all of that stuff, and you've coached against SEC teams. Is there a part of you that's kind of excited to see, what it's like to compete in this league week after week?
Yeah, it's a huge challenge because the best players in the country, college players in the country, are in this league in general. A lot of probably the biggest commitment to football is in the country. And I had a coach say one time that coaches can help win games. Players win games, obviously, but you need administrations to win championships. And you see that in the SEC. And thankfully, I'm in a place that believes the same thing.
You've had guys like Pat White. You've had guys like Khalil. Is there I know you talked about this a little bit earlier. Is there an attribute about quarterbacks that you look for the most beyond just maybe the physical tools?
Yeah, beyond the obvious, you want to run and throw on the run. There's a certain competitiveness and a willingness to do, what it takes to win games at that position. And I'm not talking about just running and getting beat up, because you don't want to do that, but I guess a certain competitiveness, like, okay, we need 4 yards. What play do you want to run, coach? And we'll execute it to the best in the nth degree. And Pat White, I've had some great ones. Khalil's great, but Pat White is probably the epitome of that. There wasn't a lot of people that thought that he could be a quarterback. He could throw too now, as you know. He could throw, He could run. But
there were a lot of SEC schools, for example, that didn't offer him as a quarterback because they just didn't think he could do it.
He was going to go to LSU, and they were talking about maybe playing DB or something like that. And he called and said, "Hey, coach, the rumor was out he committed to him." I said, "Well, you haven't signed yet, have you?" And he said, "No." I said, "Well, you ain't committed yet." So we got him, and he was maybe one of the might be the winningest or one of the winningest quarterbacks of all time. Certainly for us, for me, one of the greatest leaders I've ever had on my football program.
We'll really appreciate the time. And one more thing, I'm curious, because this is going to come up a lot in the spring, I'm sure, and as the season goes on. In your mind, is being a head coach again the goal, or are you just kind of year by year?
That's a fair question. I think I have a kind of an urge, and I always say, sometimes you hear athletes or coaches say, "Well, I have nothing. I don't have to prove anything. I've already proven. I don't have nothing else." I certainly don't feel that way. I have a lot to prove. But I've always felt that way. So that's not changed now that, now all of a sudden I feel I have something to prove. I always have felt that way. If a head coach opportunity comes up and it's the right fit, I think I'm still young enough to have some really good years and all that, but I'm not going to worry about that. I always, and that's the truth, I've always told all the young coaches, treat every job like it's the last job you ever have, because it might be. And that's what I'm going to do here.
Rich, thanks so much for the time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Hotty toddy.
Thanks so much for Rich giving us that amount of time yesterday. The podcast is brought to you in part by Scripted Jewelry, scriptedjewelry.com. Again, if you haven't gone to the website, just go to it. You'll see what we're talking about. They got frequently asked questions, sizing guides, all the different ways to shop, a lookbook, and more as you celebrate love, family, memories, and giving the best gifts, because they put whatever script you would like on a piece of jewelry, from pendants, rings, all sorts of different things, fingerprints. They have tons of options. You can find the one that fits you best for that special occasion, or just because they've got new arrivals. They show you all the different ways that you can get involved with those, and the turnaround times are great. So handcrafted order with great turnaround times at Scripted Jewelry. And when you order, in the coupon code box, put Rebels10, REBELS 10 for 10% off. That's scriptedjewelry.com.
Podcast also brought to you by Oxford University Bank, OUB, locally owned and operated right here in Oxford. When you deposit money at OUB, that money and the vast majority of the bank's profits go right back into the Oxford community. OUB gives you the comfort of home, all the benefits the big mega banks provide, all the technology and products you can want, all with the personal touch. They also have a commercial checking account now paying 1% interest as long as you keep $10,000 in the account. Comes with fully interactive online banking. They also can set up any local business to deposit checks from their office and not have to worry with coming to the bank daily to deposit those checks. More than likely, any business owner at another bank is now paying a monthly fee for their account, and they're most assuredly not making 1% on their money. So to learn more, go to Live Oxford, bankoxford.com, or call a customer service rep, 662-234-6668. OUB is FDIC insured. Podcast also brought to you by Harry Alexander. Harry is an Oxford-based RE/MAX legacy realty agent. He's been in Oxford more than 4 decades. No one knows the residential and condo market in Oxford better than he does. Go to his site, harryalexander.com. Click on the Properties and Neighborhoods tab, filter through about what you're looking for, and then send him an email, ha@harryalexander.com. Also brought to you by Grenada Nissan. If you're in the market for a Nissan vehicle, look no further than Grenada Nissan. They have a complete selection of new and previously owned Nissan vehicles, great lease deals as well. Go in, tell Gene and Sandy that you heard about Grenada Nissan on the podcast, and you'll get Rebel savings on top of the already great deals at Grenada Nissan. It's GrenadaNissanUSA.com. And the podcast brought to you by John Edwards of Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis. So you guys know how this works. John's part of Virtuoso. It's a worldwide network of travel partners that allows him to supply his clients with added values and unique benefits that are simply not available to other travelers. In other words, you can search all day on the damn internet and you're not going to find it. He'll search for 10 minutes and will. He knows where to go. He has the connections. So whatever you're planning on this summer, going to Florida, going to the beach, going on a cruise, going to Disney, going to Napa, whatever it may be, get in touch with John. Tell him some parameters, what you're looking to do, what your budget is, how long you want to go, when you want to go, what you want to do, all that stuff. And he's going to come back with options. He's going to plan a much cooler trip for you. And if you'll tell him that you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast, you're going to save $50 off your first book trip. It's 901-494-3387 or jedwards@regencytravel.net.
Podcast is brought to you by G&M Pharmacy. Don't waste your time with big chains. Go somewhere you're appreciated. They're locally owned and operated. They care about the customers. They've been Oxford's hometown trusted pharmacy for 40 years now. For many great services such as MedSync, immunizations, and free delivery to your home or workplace right there off South Lamar Boulevard in Oxford. And transfer your medications is simple. I've done it. Give them a call, 662-236-2222, and they will take care of the rest. Some interesting stuff there from Rodriguez. We'll obviously dive into that in the coming days. One more reminder, if you did not hear our show yesterday, you should go read the very, very complete look at some of the concepts that have made him successful over his tenure. He talked about that. Obviously, you heard a minute ago. So if you haven't read that, go do that, and we'll jump right back into the interviews on the Patterson Earhart Hotline. We're going to go now to Jeffrey Wright. A lot of college basketball.
No NBA.
A lot of Ole Miss basketball.
No NBA.
And then some NFL there at the end. So here's Jeffrey Wright. Good morning, Jeffrey. Got you a little while today, so we'll cover a good many topics. I tweeted this last night, though. Are you jumping onto any of this? Are you getting ready to fade it because it's going the other way? Ole Miss now 13-1 against the spread in college basketball games this season.
It's an interesting dynamic because you would think that Vegas has to adjust, but I think it just falls in that, listen, until you're going to have to ride the sinking ship. Like you're going to have the bet that loses, and then there's going to have to be some anticipation on what to do next. But you're just at this point, you're just at a blind, close your eyes and just keep betting them. Like they are a blind, like ride the wave until it will take you no further, or no farther, I should say. But no, this is, you can't start anticipating the fade now, because it's very obvious that Vegas is. I feel like Ole Miss is very similar to like what Washington State was in football this year, in that they know the roster. They're like, this is the same freaking team as last year, and that team wasn't that good. The difference being Washington State got the injection of a new quarterback, whereas Ole Miss has gotten the injection of a new coach and new enthusiasm, just kind of change. But it's the same type thing. Like Vegas cannot adjust to the success that this team is having. And just a quick shout out to my buddy Paris Buchanan. I don't know of anyone that cares as deeply about his job and is as passionate about his job as he is. And Paris is largely responsible for your game day atmosphere inside the pavilion. And I think I was happy for my buddy last night. Like I didn't care one way or the other about what happened in the game, but I was happy for my buddy because I know how much he cares about that program, and I know how much his job means to him. And it was cool on TV to watch what appeared to be a pretty good atmosphere.
It was, man. It's a great arena. I wrote this last night. I'm not pretending this is like brilliant prose. It's not, but this is what they built it for. You know, they built it for games like last night, and they had a big crowd. It wasn't sold out, but it was close.
And the students aren't even in, like, in fairness to them, students aren't in session.
Yeah, no, the student section was packed, and it was rowdy.
Yeah.
And so credit to them. But it was a great environment.
6 o'clock start, too. Like, that's 6 o'clock start's tough, especially when, you know, a lot of people from Memphis would like to go down if you know, they're trying to get excited. But, man, it's really tough to get down there.
You got to leave work early.
Yeah.
You got to leave work early. You got to figure out what you're going to do with the kids. You know, as I always say, little Jimmy's got soccer practice and Jenny's got dance, and you got to figure out how you're going to manage all that. It's musical chairs a little bit, but the environment was great. I catch myself being happy for a lot of the people there that like Paris, like you mentioned, because the last couple of years have sucked for Ole Miss.
Really been tough on him.
Yeah, just for Ole Miss in
he's
general.
a guy that, you know, he loves his job, and at the end of the day, if you love your job and you see someone that's kind of miserable doing their job, but they love their job, like, it's one thing for you, me, or Chase to hate our job at a particular point because it's largely because, like, what we're doing we don't enjoy. But, like, he enjoys the premise of his job, and it was just so difficult for them because, you know, as you mentioned, the last few years have kind of sucked.
Well, and here's the other person, and I tweeted this morning, and I'll get hammered with the Homer thing, which is always funny to me because of whatever reason. I caught myself last night really happy for Terrence Davis, and I'll tell you why. And you guys can relate to this because you're both in media. Terrence had a great sophomore year and got a lot of adulation. He had a bad junior year. There's no way around it. He didn't play well. He didn't live up to expectations. And every single time, and there were a lot of really bad times, every single time he was requested, he came in and he did interviews, and he did them in as good of a mood as he could have. He's always been a polite kid. Yes, sir. No, sir. Even last year when he was a little irritated at times, he was, for lack of a better word, professional with his media stuff. And I appreciate it. And on a night like last night when he goes off on a national stage and has a couple of electric dunks and makes some threes and plays one of what I thought was one of his more efficient defensive games of his career, and he gets the Skype thing with Andy Katz and some of that stuff, I was really happy for that kid. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the way. It's obviously becoming a story. They're 2-0. There's a lot of basketball left. I mean, there's 16 SEC games left. They still have a home game with Iowa State. They still have at least one SEC tournament game. So there's at least 18 games left in the season, and this thing could go in any number of directions. But on a night like last night, it was good to see a kid like that rewarded.
I completely agree with you. Also, it kind of reminds me of, like, for instance, remember Jarvis's senior year didn't go as planned. And to me, Terrence's junior year was much like Jarvis's senior year, in which, hey, it's finally his time to be the guy, and it didn't work out for either guy. What I think was cool is that Terrence got a chance to have, as a senior, got a chance to kind of right the ship. One thing that I do think will be fascinating to watch with this team going forward is they haven't really, I don't know if adversity is the word, but they haven't really had anything go wrong. Like, even in their two losses, they were kind of expected losses, and they for certain in the Butler game, they exceeded expectations. So they haven't really had, like, the true negative, kind of, like, I don't want to say a losing streak because I mean more than that. Like, for instance, what the Grizzlies have been going through the last 6 to 8 weeks, where everything feels difficult. There's bad mojo around the team. How do they, kind of the grinds of a basketball season? Like, for instance, the things that we would see during a baseball season. That's what I think makes basketball so difficult to analyze. Like, what's the difference between a team just going through a slump, a 6-7 game stretch where they just look bad, but, it's an 82-game NBA season, or it's I don't know now, what do they play? 40? How many basketball games do they play? 36?
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss is 13-2. Is that right?
12-2.
12-2.
Yeah.
So they're 12-2. So they've played 14. They've got 18 minimum.
32.
32. That you're guaranteed 32 games.
So how do you judge? Like in football, we know like loss is bad. Like you overreact. That's the great thing about football. But in basketball, especially at the college level, there's kind of there are ebbs and flows of the season. You've got, how do you look at whether or not this is just kind of a valley of the season? I'm curious to see how they respond when they inevitably hit that, because you look at almost every team that just happens in basketball.
Yeah, I think
that will be an interesting storyline to watch.
Yeah, I think this is where Davis, as a coach, is underrated. It's the part that we don't get to see, and it might be why he was in his late 50s or whatnot before he got the big Power 5 job. I think where he is best is on the practice court. I mean, at first, when you hear a guy talk about it all the time, I'm a cynical jerk, and I realize that. I don't try to be. I just kind of am. And in fairness to you, you live in your professional environment. The people that you cover consistently, if not lie, they consistently spin. And so you have to have a natural skepticism, because so much of what you hear is just pure BS. You're saying I've been impacted by covering Houston Nutt and Hugh Freeze. I get it. I'll take that and put that on my.
Yeah, I mean, like that. When people go, "Why did you love Andy Kinney so much?" It's like, because he told the truth. From his point of view, he told you what he deemed to be true.
Yes, absolutely. So here's what I was going to say about Kermit. When he talks about practice a lot, at first I'd kind of do.
Because it sounds very football guy.
Well, it just sounds cliche. And then as the season goes on and you ask questions after wins and Kermit continues to go back to practice and the kids start referencing practice, I think every practice, and it's scripted, but there's nothing you can do about that. Every practice that they have, I think, includes periods of adversity. I think he creates adversity in practice so that when it comes in a game, and it's come twice now, this is the part of their season that is, to me, is most interesting, and I'm not a good enough writer to get this across yet. Had they won these two games with both Tyree and Terrence Davis playing their best basketball at the same time, I'd go, well, they're just hot. They're hot right now.
Terrence stunk last night.
But Terrence
Brandon.
Yeah,
Brandon
Terrence was not good against Vanderbilt except for the last 8 minutes. And Breon Tyree was not good last night. Now, he hung in there and gave him some things, but Breon was not good last night. And so they've won two games, one over an average SEC team and one over a really talented. I mean, Auburn is talented. When you watch them in warm-ups, man, they look the part, okay? I mean, they really do. They've got NBA bodies on that team.
It's just that Auburn basketball tradition.
But they are. They have players now. That Bryce Brown can play, and the Wiley kid can play. They've got kids who can play. And when you watch this team win games last night, where the SEC Player of the Week gives them. What Breon give him? I'm pulling it up.
Basically nothing. Even missed some free throws.
I think he had one in the first half.
Breon was 1 for 10 from the floor, 0 for 1 for 3, 3 for 6 from the line. His 1 point in the first half was on a technical shot. He
missed the second.
He finished with 5 points. Is that right? Yeah, 5 points, 5 boards. 2 assists, 6 turnovers in 35 minutes. I saw where someone said, take him out. I'm like, you can't take him out. He's it. They don't have anybody else. So they haven't played a game in the league yet where Tyree and Terrence Davis are sort of clicking together. That hasn't happened yet. And here's what they're doing right now that's really impressing me. I'm coming across like the homer today, and I'm not trying to. I'm just impressed with what I see. I look at what they're getting out of Dominic Olejniczak, and that's coaching. Andy Kennedy told me at the beginning of Dominic Olejniczak's sophomore year. He goes, he's an NBA player. Now, obviously, and you guys know I'm a big AK guy. I like AK a lot. But that obviously was a misevaluation.
Yes.
But Andy didn't survive in the SEC for 12 years because he was an idiot. So there was something there, and he couldn't get it out of him. This staff is starting to get something out of this kid. The stat line's not incredible. 7 points.
No, but he got it felt like, at least from television, it felt like every time the ball was in the air and he had a chance to go get it, he came down with it.
Yeah, 11 points, 7 boards, 2 assists, a steal, played 29 minutes, only committed 2 fouls, and this was against Austin Wiley, who, guys, is going to play in the NBA. Austin Wiley is tall, long, springy, athletic, quick twitch, all that stuff. That kid's going to play
Me.
He's like
I'm
you.
so close on this one.
He's going to play in the NBA. I just thought it was really impressive. And then you look at what they're getting out of the freshman, Buffin. Against Vandy, it was Henson who gave him a lot. Against Auburn, it was Buffin. Buffin comes in, gives them 16 points, 4 boards, 3 steals, an assist, only 1 turnover, 3 fouls in 23 minutes off the bench. They're getting stuff out of role players. They're getting legitimate stuff out of role players. And then, to Andy's credit, Andy once said Devontae Shuler would lead the league in scoring. It's probably an overstatement. But Devontae Shuler last night, very quietly in 35 minutes, listen to this stat line as the point guard. 14 points, a rebound, no assist, but only 1 turnover and 2 steals.
Let's take a break in our talk with Jeffrey to tell you the podcast brought to you in part by Community Mortgage, Oxford, Memphis, Soto County, and Chattanooga. Underwriting and processing is done in Memphis. You're getting local underwriting that understands your market. That's a pretty big deal, as well as a leader in condo financing in Oxford. So that's Jason about the float down option, which allows you to lock in the current rate. But if rates go down for you close, you get that lower rate. 662-234-2704 or JLO, that's JLOWE at communitymtg.com.
Podcast also brought to you by the Westin Jackson. It's the premier hotel in the Jackson area. Great place to stay. In addition to that, they've got Soul Spa. It's the ultimate luxury spa experience in downtown Jackson. You can indulge in personalized massages, signature facials, soothing body treatments, and so much more on their extensive spa list. Then you can gather at Estelle Wine Bar and Bistro, sip on a creative craft cocktail, or enjoy their curated wine list. It's open for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Chef Caden's mission is to connect guests with the community through local partnerships. So gather at Estelle at the Westin Jackson tonight. My column from last night's contest is up on rebelgrove.com, and you can read it there. It's sponsored by Pinnacle Trust. Pinnacle Trust is based in Madison, Mississippi, represents clients in 24 states, has advisors in 3 states. Founded in 1997, Pinnacle Trust provides detailed, specialized investment, financial planning, retirement planning for individuals and businesses, and much more. I've told you guys this before, what they do, and it's that time of the year that everybody is, at least for me this year, it's much better. My taxes are done. I can actually start thinking about investing. There's new 401k laws, no matter whether you're Republican or Democrat or whatever. The laws are what the laws are. You can invest more. You can invest differently. Your tax codes are different. You can go find out how that impacts you, regardless of how much money you do or don't make, how much money you want to put back, how much money you can afford to put back, all of that stuff. And what you do at Pinnacle Trust is they sit down with you individually and they find out what your goals are, what your situation is, what are your retirement plans, when are you planning to retire, what do you want to do with retirement, because everybody's different. Some people want to travel, some people just want to hang out in the garden, some people are going to have a lot of expenses, some people aren't going to have any. Find out what the best plan for you is, and Pinnacle Trust will then build a plan just for you. Pintrust.com, P-I-N-N, trust.com. Mention you heard about Pinnacle Trust on the podcast, and you'll get 10% off your first year's fee.
Now, Jeffrey Wright, again, on the Patterson-Earhart Hotline.
1 turnover in 35 minutes against
Andy,
against those guards.
When he probably made that statement to you, Andy has had multiple guys that lead the conference in scoring because when he found one guy, he just said, get him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, Andy was a freedom guy. I mean, and Bruce Pearl nailed this last night. We've been having this debate about, why are they better? And look, you can think what you want to think about Bruce Pearl. The dude is really good at basketball, and he could go to like Andy could go to TV tomorrow and be a TV star tomorrow. He has charisma. He gets it. He knows how to. He knows how to express his thoughts about things. He said the difference is that, with Andy gave kids a lot of freedom, and with that freedom came often a lot of empty possessions. And with Kermit, there's less freedom, but there are no empty possessions. And this team is not playing, because let's see, the turnover. Ole Miss had 17 turnovers last night. 416, committed 17. They're not playing elite offensive basketball yet they're starting to put up some kind of elite offensive numbers. I
think that's a fairly big story there. How sloppy they were, and yet
they win by 15. I'm telling you, I'm really questioning. I'm not going to be the guy that goes, "Hey man, they're going 14-4 in the league." No. But I am starting to say, well, what is there? Because Chase and I were just talking about this. So they go to Mississippi State on Saturday. It's going to be difficult. State's 0-2. State's backed into forget the rivalry stuff for a minute. If State loses to Ole Miss on Saturday, they have dug themselves a hole. They have to win that game. But if Ole Miss were to find a way to win there, they get LSU and Arkansas at home next week. LSU's good, and Arkansas's okay. But if they split those games, that's 4-1 through the first 5. You have to start really recalibrating what your expectations were.
So according to Ken Palm, Saturday should be a 78-72 loss. Next Tuesday, LSU at home should be a 80-76 win. And then Arkansas on Saturday should be a 79-72 win. And then that next stretch is actually tough because you got Alabama on the road, Iowa State at home, but that's another free shot, as Neil likes to say. And then they go to Florida.
Yeah, and so you got to get it now.
They have that as a 3-game losing stretch. But according to Ken Palm right now, he's got them at 21-10 and 11-7 in the league. So my question is, let's just say it goes to chalk. What does that look like?
It means that first game in Nashville on Thursday is probably a tournament play-in game.
With the potential of you already being in, frankly, if the league does what it's supposed to do,
because it's hard to look at the bubble at the rest of the country and not look at it in a vacuum. But I'll tell you what, man, if they do chalk like that and then win one in Nashville and get in the tournament, this guy's National Coach of the Year candidate. This team was horrible last season. You had to be around them, and you guys were some, but you weren't around them as much as I was. It was as horrible an environment in basketball as I've seen. The only thing I can compare it to is Houston Nuts last year.
Jeffrey, switch topics a little bit because Neil's sworn off the NFL season, so I can get you for 10 or 15 minutes with that. His lifelong love of the Bears just got to him with that loss the other day.
Generations of McCreadys have been pulling for the Bears. You have to understand that is a family tradition. That, it's 4 generations of strong American breeding, right in intertwined in all of that is a passionate, amazing love of the Chicago Bears.
So the gambling gods coming down on Jeffrey. You had an Eagles money line on that kick on Sunday.
Did your brother tell you? Did your brother tell you about it?
No, you told me about it.
Okay, yeah. So. Your brother came up for the weekend. Shout out to our boy who's he's recovering from shoulder surgery. Neil, he was supposed to have an hour-long surgery. The doctor, when they woke him up, said, "Well, we did all we could." That's exactly what you want to hear right after a surgery. Well, we did all we could. It's like, what is those AT&T commercials that they're running now, or like expectation?
Yeah.
I took the first half under before the game because I didn't have any feel on that game whatsoever because Nick Foles has completely just put my brain in just a pretzel when it comes to NFL football. So I had no idea what to do. I was like, I'm just going to watch the game and I'll kind of figure it out. After I watched the Bears not really do anything offensively, because in general, it's like, okay, if Trubisky can find his first read and it's there, he usually looks pretty good. And then after that, it's not great. So I was like, you know what? Eagles have turned it over twice, but they're moving the football almost every possession. I just figured I'll take whatever I won on the first half and I'll put that on the money line. It was like plus 180 at that point. It wasn't as high as it could have been before the game, but it was still pretty high. And when that first kick went through and I knew it was going to be a timeout, like that was the thing. Everyone thought it was going to come down to a Cody Parkey kick. Most rational people go, well, Parkey's not been good this year, especially in pressure situations. So if you're going to have a kicker in this moment, you want it to be Cody Parkey. But, God hates Jeffrey, first and foremost. Like, I understand that can be true, but you have to understand there's a priority of the way that sports play out. And whatever hurts me the most, that's what's going to happen. Little did I know when I say what hurts me the most, the kick not going through isn't what hurt me the most. It was my celebration. And I have this couch that kind of has like an attached ottoman with a really sharp edge. And I was going bananas and happened to just kind of clip that corner perfectly. I immediately go down to a knee. Like 6 seconds later, I go, my leg feels wet. And I didn't pee on myself. And I looked down and just like a puddle of blood.
Well, for our new podcast
nice, solid
listeners,
gash right on my shin.
For our new podcast listeners, Jeffrey's also the same person that pulled the muscle sleeping a few years ago. So
I've done it multiple times. Let's not act like that's a one-time thing. I also hit balls for the first time on Monday. And I've been trying. Listen, I've been in the lab. I lost my passion for playing the wonderful game of golf, but I spent a lot of time in thought. I looked at a lot of Instagram videos of Joey D, of other George Gankus, all of these fitness nuts, and I decided I'd come up with a nice game plan for what my swing was going to look like. So I started implementing these changes on Monday, and I still can't. I'm still sore from swinging a golf club. Yes, I'm aware of how pathetic that is.
Where should I fall on? I mean, he's been doing it for years, but it came back into the focus yesterday. Isn't the whole prop thing that Sean Payton constantly uses something that should bother me, but in some ways I just go, yeah, that's kind of him, and for some reason it sort of works? For anybody not aware, yesterday Payton put stacks of cash totaling $200,000, a Lombardi trophy, and a Super Bowl ring in the locker room to show the bonuses should the Saints win 3 games in a row moving forward.
It's one of those things where you're like, if you read that on paper, you're like, what a cocky douche.
But he kind of is.
But that's my point. Sean Payton is a cocky douche, but he's your cocky douche.
He's right.
You know what I mean?
But he's right. He's like, if you want this, go win 3 games.
But I mean, he brings mascots into the locker room all the time. Like he does some weird stuff.
Chase, did I ever once criticize in the group chat? If I would have made fun of it, I'm in a group chat with 3 other Saints fans. If I had the opportunity to make fun of it, I would.
Yeah.
The only thing that truly infuriates me about Sean Payton right now is this freaking Taysom Hill fetish.
Oh, I know. It's going to bite him at some point.
Here's my thing about Payton. Give him credit. He's not talking to a room full of Mensa in there. I mean,
no.
Those are not that is 53 people. There's 5 or 6 smart dudes and a bunch of guys that if it weren't for football, life would be a challenge. So there's no point in trying to motivate them with great philosophy or read Dickens or Shakespeare to them or something.
He's tangibly showing them this is 3 games away.
He's saying,
"Oh, Chaucer says what's up."
He's saying, "I know what motivates you guys. Bling and cash. And if you win 3 games, you get this much bling and this much cash."
So do we have to consider whether or not this was genius?
I don't think,
because obviously it's awesome. I think we can all agree.
Well, I mean, he's the same
awesome.
dude that in, I think, 07 or 08, they were started 0-3 or something, and he put in a chuck wagon on the practice field to show your bandwagon's empty and everybody hates you and doesn't believe in you. Put a literal bandwagon on the side of the field.
Chase brings up a good point. Maybe like you have to kind of think it's like, okay, what would a 7-year-old go? Ooh, yeah. Maybe that's the motivation tactics you should use with NFL guys.
You're dealing
Maybe Belichick has it wrong. Maybe Belichick's treat them like they're professionals. Maybe that's why they're not that good this year.
Yeah, but if you listen to the Gladiator podcast, that's not what Belichick does. Belichick likes guys who are kind of up against that last chance, that have been waived, that have been dumped. He gets those guys in, underpays them, treats them like crap, and goes, if you don't make it here, you're done.
I got about 5 minutes with you, Jeffrey. Let's run through these games, though. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts on this. Cowboys at Rams. Rams are a 7-point favorite. In L.A., that is the Saturday night game.
It's a weird game because both teams match up fairly well against the other, and here's what I mean. The Rams, while it makes no sense to me because their defensive line's really good, but for whatever reason, I guess maybe they're a little undisciplined. You can run on them, and
there's a whole lot of just putting their ears back and going down the field or up the field, I guess.
Yeah, and maybe you saw the Colts really picked on Clowney. Now Clowney made some big holy S type plays, but he also got torched by being so aggressive. They would kind of, they'd run a lot of counter plays, and he would lose contain, and the Colts were able to hit some big plays in the running game on that. But I mean, anything that promotes giving Zeke the ball more, I think is good for the Cowboys. And then you look on the other side, the Cowboys defense, which has been, I think, maybe one of the, for whatever reason this year, as much as we talk about the Cowboys, why we don't talk about that defense, I have no idea, because that defense is nasty.
It is.
But they struggle against play action passing. And so I tend to think that we've overreacted to the Rams because I think we kind of lost sight of what made the Rams so good early, which is Todd Gurley is an absolute monster and a machine.
And he's basically healthy now.
Well, yeah, he's been hurt. And so much of their offense has been focus on him, have the defense focus on him, then take these deep play action shots because Jared Goff is a tremendous downfield thrower. And you get these guys running wide open deep, and they were hitting these monster plays. Well, then when Gurley got banged up and it was so obvious that he was hobbled, teams didn't really have to focus on that. And then they just said, screw it, go get Goff. And we see, it turns out Goff is like any other quarterback. When you have some pressure in his face, he tends not to be as accurate down the field. And so I think maybe we overreacted to that because now we're basically going on 4 weeks that Gurley's been able to kind of get healthy. And so on that one,
I like the Rams.
I think the Rams are better. And I also think that the Rams are they're going to show up.
Eagles at Saints, the Sunday 3:40 game. The Saints are 8-point favorites in the Dome.
I mean,
Saints won by like 40 last time. That won't
everything says the Saints, but I have no explanation for Nick Foles. I texted you on Sunday. Is Nick Foles the most clutch quarterback ever?
I know.
I don't get it.
I wanted the Cowboys. I wanted a team that beat the Saints instead of a team that the Saints beat by 40.
Yeah, because when the Saints played them, they didn't have the full offensive line, and part of what made that game
on the road on a Thursday night, whatever. Yeah,
you could write that one off. But do you think Peyton regret? Nah, he doesn't. I was going to say, do you think he regrets running it up against the Eagles? But then it was probably not.
Not him.
No.
I mean, I think the Saints win, but I think it's fairly tight.
What was the lead? No team's ever given up a 24-point lead in the fourth. He was going to damn sure make sure.
It was 31. Yeah, he goes, well, I mean, you don't want to be the first team to give up 31 points in the fourth quarter. Well, that's true.
He makes an excellent point.
Yeah, I like the Saints, but it's going to be a little closer maybe than I'm going to be comfortable with sometime around 6 o'clock on Sunday night.
This could be, I'm prepared to eat my words, but it does feel like this could be a game where the Saints win by 3 touchdowns or more, and we're like, wow, we really overthought this. But it feels like it's either going to be a Saints blowout or somehow the Eagles just
Well, that was the same thing a few years ago, in 9 when the Saints did win the Super Bowl. They lost those 3 games in a row to end the year. Everybody had written them off, and then I think they beat the Cardinals 45-7 in the divisional round of the playoffs.
See, I'm also in this weird spot. What do I want? Because obviously the Eagles are in my division. I don't believe in Carson Wentz. I think I want this Foles thing to end because I know everyone points to, well, Foles played so poorly when he was the starter at the beginning of the year. It's like, well, yeah, but Wentz was sitting there on the bench about ready to be, he was cleared for contact and they were slowly bringing him along. It's like he was kind of looking over his shoulder. He doesn't have to look over his shoulder now. And so the dude just plays with like reckless abandon. And I don't know who I want the Eagles to keep. I think I want them to keep Wentz.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? There's a reason why Foles was, a 5th-round pick, 6th-round pick?
Yeah, no,
He's on team number, 4 or 5, something like that?
I'm right, though. I don't trust Wentz to actually run through it, so, yeah, I'd much rather them have Wentz. Be decent in the regular season and let them not be a factor in the playoffs. I know you got to go. Just give me the picks on these last 2 games. Colts at Chiefs, Kansas City -5.5.
Man, there's a reason why the Chiefs are like 1-10 in the last 11 in the playoffs. Like that defense is so bad, but
and Andrew Luck has been so good,
and the Colts are banged up on defense. Like I'll say, give me the home team, but I feel disgusting about that.
And then a game I'm pretty excited about is the Sunday noon game. Chargers at Patriots. The Patriots are a 4-point favorite in Foxborough.
Belichick has only lost this game once. The Patriots were 8-0 at home, and I hate Phillip Rivers. And I don't want to believe in this. This is his time. This is going to be his Elway moment. All those years of frustration, can't win the big one. I need Belichick to do what Belichick does. Just in this, do not put me in this position. I do not want to have to sit here and watch the Phillip Rivers run.
Fair enough. Have a good show.
All right.
Thanks to Jeffrey for always giving us so much time on Thursdays. The Pop-Up Oxford Festival is coming, the 3rd annual one for that matter, January 19th through 27th. Ole Miss basketball, community reading, songwriters competitions, Ole Miss women's basketball, hotel hop, MLK Day breakfast, and much more. You got the movies at the Belfry, the Oxford Art Crawl, and then we told you about it yesterday, our interest, the Bitter and Bites, the cocktail class and tasting on January 22nd for that Iowa State Ole Miss game on the 26th. The Ole Miss baseball team will be in attendance for you to meet them, the Fiber Arts Festival. So much going on in Oxford. That's January 19th through 27th for the 3rd annual Pop-Up Oxford. You can see the full calendar of events at popupoxfordms.com or visit oxfordms.com/events.
Both Rich Rodriguez and Jeffrey Wright joined us today on the Patterson and Earhart hotline. Patterson and Earhart, attorneys at law, specialize in personal injury law, real estate law, but theirs is a general practice that can handle any of your legal needs. When you contact Patterson and Earhart, you speak to one of the partners in the firm, and that's who will handle your case, not some paralegal at a faceless corporate firm. If Patterson and Earhart can't help you, they'll refer you to someone who can. John Calvin Patterson and Wes Earhart are Ole Miss guys. They're local guys, and when you call them, you're going to get one of them on the phone within the same day, guaranteed. So whether you've been injured in a car wreck or have other legal issues, give them a call, 662-526-1992, or check out their website, pelaws.com. Your initial consultation is free. Home 2 Suites is now open and ready for you to stay with them in 2019. Chase mentioned Pop-Up Oxford. We've been talking about Ole Miss hoops. If you're coming to watch Ole Miss at the Pavilion or you're coming up for Pop-Up Oxford, you should know that the Home 2 Suites is located just 1 mile from campus, just off the Old Taylor Road exit. They're offering a 20% discounted rate the entire week of Pop-Up Oxford. That's January 19th through the 26th. There's a couple of home games in there. There's all sorts of stuff that Chase just mentioned in Oxford. Call the front desk to receive the discount when booking. It's a pet-friendly hotel. You can bring your pet with you. They have a designated area for walks, complete with a pet station for your convenience. So follow them on social media, Home 2 Suites Oxford, so you do not miss their announcement of when the football weekend reservations will open. And when you head up, don't forget to step into the new year in style. You really need to experience the difference a quality sock makes. This is the first step in dressing for the job you want, not the job you have. So go to deadsoxy.com, enter the code RebelGrove at checkout to receive 25% off all orders, including sale items. Promo code RebelGrove at checkout for 25% off all orders, and Happy New Year from Dead Soxy.
Podcast is brought to you by Mastercuts Lawn and Landscape. Give them a call at 662-607-7773 to set up your contracts for the coming year. They'll help your lawn, your landscape, flower beds. If you just need some pine straw or you need a full kind of reimagining there of whatever landscape goals you have. They also are still doing the custom playgrounds that'll entertain your kids from years to come, whether it's pirate ships, princess castles, or just simple forts. Again, you can email them at info@gomastercuts.com or 662-607-7773. Happy 4th birthday yesterday to Ezra Weaver of Blue Delta fame. Nick Weaver, one of the owners there of Blue Delta. You wore your corduroys to the game last night.
You were jealous.
I had not gotten a pair, and then we walked out of the football office, and I kind of looked down and admired them and went, not bad, not too shabby.
You didn't want to take that plunge just yet. I took it, and you were one of those few times that you've looked at me and thought,
you went boldly into the sun, and you came out the other side.
He came out the other side.
Yeah,
looking okay.
Yeah,
I love them. They're great. They feel incredible. They look good. Listen, if something can look good on me, it can look good on anybody.
I got multiple photos texted me of people taking pictures of Jay Tate at the game yesterday.
Yeah.
Jay was down on the baseline taking pictures.
Jay and I went to the Graduate last night after the game. Had a couple of beers, hung out. Jay said all week Auburn was going to lose that game.
Mm-hmm.
He nailed it.
He picks them to lose a lot. He was not worried, but he thought Auburn was going to lose the Ole Miss football game too, or at least the chance.
Well, I think at that point there
was so much turmoil going on in that program.
Going on. I think he was bracing himself for covering a midseason coaching change. Which, if you've ever, I know those of you listening, many of you have never covered a midseason coaching change. That can be a bit of not a personal nightmare, but a
professional nightmare that will bleed over into the personal.
A professional nightmare that will end your personal life. Let's put it that way. And so when you sense that chaos coming, there is a sense of dread that comes over you of, oh, my God, what's going to happen to my October and November?
That's fair. That's fair.
So
all right.
I understood Jay's sense of foreboding and dread at that particular time.
So we don't know the full part of the metrics yet from last night because, frankly, it's too early. I mean, they might come out in 10 minutes. I have no idea what the schedule is for this. But Ole Miss, going into the night last night, was 34 in the net being the NCAA equivalency, whatever, tool or whatever it's called that they're calling it. Yeah, I don't know. There's no RPI. This is RPI. Yeah. It takes a lot of crap into account. I've talked about it. I've written about it. So whatever. There's a number. The better the number, the better the resume, okay? So, or the lower the number, the better the resume. Ole Miss at 34 going into last night. They jumped from 44 or 46 to 34 last week after the win against Vanderbilt because, even that extra end there was big against Vanderbilt because there's a margin of victory element to the net, and it's capped at 10.
Right.
So Ole Miss beat Vanderbilt by 10. They got maximum ability out of that margin of victory. They'll get it again with the Auburn game here.
Right.
So even down the stretch, I mean, it's minute in comparison to the entire resume, but there is some factor to even finishing some games strong when you're going to win them, or if you're losing them, not to lose by 10 or more. I mean, what margin of victory to some extent does play a role in this.
Yeah, over the course of the season,
it'll add up.
It'll add up and be little points here and little points there.
And little points are important.
We had this conversation last night, not you and me, but
in general.
I'm trying to do this without being the buzzkill guy because I'm not buzzkilling. If you're an Ole Miss basketball fan, you should be excited. When people talk about the bubble, right now today there is no bubble. Does it make sense, Chase?
Well, we're not far enough into it to have a bubble.
Yeah, there's no bubble.
We're accumulating right now.
Yeah.
Just accumulating. We're going up the hill.
Who's in the tournament? Well, today, nobody. Because, I mean, we're all saying Auburn's in the tournament. Well, if Auburn goes 4-14 in the league, they're not in the tournament. Well, right now they have no SEC wins. So right now, today, they're not in the tournament. Do I anticipate Auburn making the tournament? I do. I guess you could probably say Duke's in the tournament. Gonzaga's in the tournament.
Tennessee's probably in the tournament.
Tennessee's in the tournament, but technically Tennessee's not in the tournament. They're
2-0. They could go 2-16.
Yeah, so I'd
like some odds on that. But
yeah, I love that bet. I feel really good about it. But you understand what I'm saying. I'm just trying to be careful about the bubble. It's too early to talk about the damn bubble because there is no bubble.
This is head down and just continue to pile up wins. You need to take that?
Yeah. Hold on one second.
You're fine. Hello. We'll take a quick call there. But, yeah, I mean, that's the point is you're putting as many things in the positive column right now as you can humanly possibly do. That's it.
Yes.
Positive.
And right now, Ole Miss's positive column is starting to look pretty.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
It is. If they had a room and you're going to decorate the room is starting to look nice.
You're building a house, and you have a heck of a foundation. You're starting to put some walls up, but
it looks good.
A natural disaster happens later in the day, and you still are screwed.
They look good. They really do. We talked about this with Jeffrey. I like what I see in terms of development. I like the fact that they've yet to play a game in the league where all three guards click. Schuler was really good last night. Now, he's conservative, and they probably would like to see him get a little more aggressive in spots, and he probably will, but he's not making mistakes. What do you have, one turnover last night in 35 minutes? I mean, that's phenomenal. Yeah. Devontae, one turnover in 35 minutes. No assist. Ole Miss had 13 assists on 24 made field goals. It's okay. Not great. Okay. Auburn never led in that game. Ole Miss led coast to coast. Mm-hmm. Ole Miss led by 15. At the end, won it by 15. Game was only tied for 57 seconds. It's amazing.
Look, Ole Miss hasn't had season adversity to this point. They have not lost the multiple games in a row. We haven't seen them have to pick themselves up off the mat, but last night, Auburn cut that thing there early in the second half. Really ratcheted up their defense. Looked like themselves a little more than they had earlier in the game. Had Ole Miss on its heels, and I was talking to a buddy this morning who goes, that was the only time all night where the pavilion went kind of Swayze Field silent. There was oh, God, here we go, and everything kind of got quiet. And Ole Miss picked themselves back up. They rebounded from that. They got back in there and got the lead back, much like they did against Vanderbilt when Terrence Davis gave them that 7-point spurt right there in Nashville. They're at least solving that in-game adversity to this point.
Well, that's where they come back to the practice thing that I talked about with Jeffrey. I think that they do this in practice. I don't know how you manufacture that, but the guy's been coaching for a long time. He knows what he's doing. He's really good. The kids have – I thought it was interesting. He talked about how when he got there, and in Canada, they had to coach effort and they had to coach attitude. And he made the comment that, you still sometimes have to coach effort. He goes, you're never going to not have to do that. Because sometimes they're human beings. They have stuff going on in their lives too. And sometimes sometimes you wake up and you don't want to go to work. You wake up, I'm sure, some days and go, I don't want to have to go look at him and do a podcast. They probably sometimes go into the building and go, I really don't want to do this today. I'm not in the mood. I got a girl problem. My girlfriend yelled at me. My mom doesn't feel good.
It's got stuff. They're not robots.
Yeah, something's going on. He made the comment that they never have to coach attitude anymore. Never. They are completely bought in. They do what they tell them to do. They try to do what they tell them to do. I'm blown away by how much they're getting out of Olenichuk. What they're getting out of KJ Buffin. I mean, last night they got very little out of Breon Tyree. Got nothing out of Bruce Stevens. I'm not picking on Bruce. Bruce had 2 points, 2 boards, 2 assists, a block and a steal in 11 minutes. 1 for 4 from the floor, 0 for 3 from 3.
Why is he taking 3-pointers? He
must make them in practice. They're open. They're running this high pick and pop, and they're open.
Well, they would leave me open too, but I would not shoot them.
I know. Oh, I know. Every time he took them last night, I said, I don't know why they're doing this. It must be something that they see in practice and or something they're wanting to put on film. But he doesn't. Here's the thing. People say, man, you just got to give up on him. No, you're wrong. They don't have the depth luxury to give up on kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like last night,
you got to find a niche.
Zach Naylor didn't play last night. He played 8 minutes against Vandy. Luis Rodriguez hasn't played in 2 games now. You have to keep working those dudes in practice. This team's not deep. This team's not. DC Davis, 7 minutes last night. A couple of boards. That was it. 7 minutes. You got to get minutes out of people. There's 200 minutes, and you got to get minutes. And they're 35 minutes for Devontae, 38 for TD, 35 for Brian, 23 for KJ, 22 for Blake Henson, 29 for Dom.
Ooh.
I mean,
Dom played 29.
29. Dominic Olenichik, guys, for all the heat. Dominic Olenichik was – you do not win that game last night without Dominic Olenichik. I cannot tell you how good Austin Wiley has the potential to be. Big body, springy, athletic, and he got – Bruce Pearl said he got Dominic Olenichik physically beat him. That's big. That is big for Ole Miss. That is so big. That's if you're an Ole Miss fan, the great news today is that your team is not peaking. There's a lot to get better. I asked TD, I said, is that as good as you can play defensively? He's like, no, man, I had a lot of breakdowns. And every time I had a breakdown, they got open shots. And I don't know if you noticed it last night. Bryce Brown got hot. Bryce Brown can shoot at a little, guys. And Bryce Brown got hot. And when Bryce Brown got hot, Bryce Brown started feeling it, and they had to really turn it up defensively because he was just about ready to shoot Ole Miss out of the arena.
Mm-hmm.
And they stepped it up on defense. Last night in the second half, Auburn was 13 for 40. 7 of 23 from 3, which is a lot of threes. My God, that's a lot of threes. Bruce is going to look at that film and say, we shot 39 threes. Ole Miss shot 19 threes. So he's not going to be pleased with that.
Ole Miss's team sheet right now, we talk about foundation. Here's kind of where their foundation sits currently. So I've got it up in front of me for the net. Ole Miss has 4 Quadrant 1 games to this point. They have 2 wins. They've had them in the last 2 games. They've got a win over Auburn at home. Remember, you got to have, for Quadrant 1 through 30 at home, 1 through 50 if it's neutral, or sorry, 31 through 50 if it's neutral,
right.
Or 1 through 50, whatever. And then 1 through 75 if it's a road game,
right.
And you get the win. So they've got wins over Auburn and Vanderbilt, and then the losses against Cincinnati and Butler are still Quadrant 1s, which is big. Quadrant 2, this is where the other day was kind of large because Iowa State didn't fall off the map. Baylor is now a Quadrant 2 win because of them beating Iowa State a couple days ago. So just follow some
Baylor's top 50 then.
Sorry, Quadrant 2, so they're just top 70.
Okay, gotcha.
51 to 100 is neutral.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you're a Group 2, Quadrant 2 game if you're 51 to 100. Baylor is currently at 73 in the net.
Where's San Diego?
San Diego is at 101. So they're a Group 3 right now. They've actually got to they'd have to pick it up a good ways for that to be a Quadrant 2.
If you're doing the bubble thing, here's the good news. If you're doing bubble thing, you can start really engaging in college basketball because the list of teams that you need to be cheering for is growing.
Well, and you're not going to play many games where, almost every game is going to be Quadrant 1 or 2 the rest of the way. That's what's so nice about the SEC right now. Versus a couple years ago when the league was so bad, you got some Quadrant 4s in there where you're going, oh, my God, I've got to go on the road in league play and play a Quadrant 4 team.
It's one of the things like people do the Andy Kennedy, what did they overachieve, did they underachieve, all that stuff. And I don't know if you listened to the interview yesterday with Gary Parrish. Those of you who did know what I'm talking about. Those of you who didn't, shame on you. And then now I'll tell you, this is where the league has gotten so much better. And if there is an area where the SEC network has helped the SEC, I don't know who watches that Feinbaum stuff. The dude who sits in front of that and watches that on a TV, God bless you. But what the network has done for the league, Chase, is it has forced the league to look at its men's basketball program and say, all right, we got We got to maximize. And it's really good, man. You look around the league's really good. Watch the video. It's at the bottom of my column. It's of Bruce Pearl talking about the game last night. Bruce is great. I know some people think he's whatever. I'm telling you, Bruce Pearl's fascinating. And he talks about Kermit. So I coached against him at Tennessee. I coached against him at Auburn. I think that was his 10th time to coach against Kermit. He knew what was coming. And he talks about he's one of the best coaches in the country. And you look around the league, man, Rick Barnes is doing a great job. Conzo Martin's done a great job at Missouri. Avery Johnson, Mike White, Calipari. I mean, the list just goes on and on. It's a really good basketball league. And, Chase, it's been a long time since anybody could say that.
13 of the 14 teams are 102 or better in the net. South Carolina's at 151. And A&M's even the only one kind of even hovering around that 100 mark. Everybody else is pretty comfortably in the top 100. When I look at net right now, 6, 34, 151, 20, 11, 54, 71, 46, 83, 32, 13, 77, 63, 102.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the SEC tournament in Nashville could just be fascinating.
It could be really fun.
It could really be fascinating.
Everybody's got one or two players that could take over a game and go get one, and then you never know. I mean, it's
Ole Miss has 2 or 3 kids that can. I'm going to tell you what, man.
Iowa State, 22 currently in the net.
Remember I told you this. In 2 years, assuming he's healthy, and assuming that his body can do in a weight room what I think it will probably do in a weight room, look out for KJ Buffin.
Big night last night.
The way they want to operate.
And he was the dude that was going to go to middle with Kermit?
Yeah.
That dude was going to play CUSA ball?
Yeah.
Or Sunbelt ball or whatever they're in?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
He'd have lit some people on fire in that conference.
Yeah, he's going to light some people on fire in this conference.
Huh.
He's the one that catches my eye a lot.
Yeah.
Just watching his game. Now, he's not big enough right now to dominate game in and game out. But he played athletes last night. And Kermit made a great point. He goes, all these high-level kids, and both Buffin and Henson are, they've played so much AAU ball, Chase, that they've seen all these dudes. There's no intimidation. These kids have been playing against each other since they were
Everybody
15.
know everybody.
Yeah, everybody knows everybody. They've all seen each other. They know each other. There's not a lot of unfamiliarity.
The SEC is currently third in conference net, ahead of the ACC actually right now.
Really? Who's 1 and 2? Big 10?
Big 12 is number 1. Big 10 is number 2.
Okay.
Right now. So, yeah, I'm looking at Big 10. They're 120 and 32 against non-conference teams. To this
Brandon
point.
Walker struggles with that Big 10 stuff. I bet that's hard for him to get past.
Yeah. Speaking of Iowa, they are at 36 in the net as of the
slowest.
Oh gosh.
Oh God.
I mean, I do kind of feel bad for people when they lose sponsors, but ooh boy.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something about that in a minute. Yeah, something different.
Why
No,
was he
not
credentialed? He shouldn't be credentialed.
I think did they pull the credentials?
I don't know.
I think State pulled the credential.
Well, they should.
Didn't they?
I would hope.
I mean, look, guys, credentials are not very complicated to get. Just telling you, you can typically make that happen. Start like an online newsletter or something. There's a WordPress blog out there you can jump on.
JimMagic.com.
Yeah, I could tell stories, but I don't want to. I'm not going to borrow trouble today.
No, I'm not either.
I'm in a decent mood.
I'm already in enough trouble.
Yeah. All right. Tomorrow we'll talk about something. I don't know. That's a good question. We'll figure it out for tomorrow's show. We've had a lot of guests this week, so we got to kind of figure tomorrow out. But we will. RebelGrove.com.
It's got a chance to be a Friday podcast.
It does. A lot of content up there. Really go to the site. Just check it out. There's a ton there. So it's hard to go through all of it, but it is definitely there. And we will talk to you tomorrow.